Good morning, everyone. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which this conference takes place, the Ngunnawal people, and I also recognise any other people with connection to the lands of the ACT and region. And I pay my respects to elders past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are attending this event. I acknowledge the rich and ongoing contribution of First Nations people who have thousands of years cared for country. There is much to learn from First Nations people who have been involved in agriculture on the land for thousands of years. Thank you for that kind introduction, John. It's a delight to be here and to welcome you to Parliament House. The Crawford Fund Annual Conference holds an important position as Australia's key international agricultural development and food security event. And as John mentioned, I congratulate you on 30 years of delivering this conference and bringing national attention to critical food and nutrition security issues. And if I was you, John, I'd be proud of that 30 years of contribution rather than mourning your long contribution to this area. I think it's something that the nation values greatly, so thank you, John. I would like to thank the team at the Crawford Fund for putting together a deeply relevant program on transformative partnerships, local leadership and co-design for food security. And I extend my thanks to Crawford Fund patrons and the board too. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Linny Golden, Director of the Stockholm Resilience Centre, and Dr. Ismahan El Alafi, Executive Managing Director of CIMMYT. Very pleased to have you here as well. And a big welcome to all our international guests from the Pacific, Southeast Asia and beyond. It's wonderful to have such expertise from around the world. And I also applaud the Next Gen program participants and members of the RAID network who are attending today. It's a pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Australian Government, and I also have the honour, as John alluded to, of presenting the Crawford Fund Medal, which I'll come to shortly. Agricultural and food security continue to be central to the Australian Government's development agenda. With such a high number of people still facing food and nutrition insecurity, locally led solutions will be more important than ever. Alarming figures released just a few weeks ago show we are not making progress on reducing food insecurity like we need to. In 2023, 864 million people suffered from severe food insecurity, around 11% of the world's population. In our region, over half of the Pacific population experienced moderate to severe food insecurity in the 2021 to 23 period, with 44% of Pacific children under 5 experiencing stunting in 2022. Just imagine that for a moment. Nearly half of all children in the Pacific have experienced stunting due to food insecurity. And we cannot talk about food insecurity without talking about climate change. Climate change is impacting food insecurity right now. From less predictable and longer periods of drought to more intense storm and flood events, agricultural producers need to adapt their practices urgently. The changing climate is accelerating pressure on global food security, threatening access, affordability, and nutritional value of the food supply. Extreme weather events threaten food and water security with grave implications for global stability. Farmers and producers across the globe and of all sizes are keenly aware of these changing conditions and are concerned about what this means for their livelihoods. They experience firsthand these changes to the environment. They are seeing the impact before their very eyes. And of course, it's not just farmers, but also local policymakers, governments, businesses and other members of the community who need to grapple with these challenges now and into the future. This year's conference theme goes to the heart of Australia's development approach and recognises the importance of locally led solutions, partnerships, local leadership and co-design. It's fantastic to see the focus on these principles at this conference. Our Australian international development policy champions locally led efforts to drive change. As a development partner, Australia understands that the way we do development matters. We know listening and responding to our partners' priorities matters. as does growing partnerships, be they in research or between governments or with local civil society groups to deliver outcomes. The work of ACEA is a great example, and I'm pleased to acknowledge the CEO of ACEA, Wendy Umberger, who is with us today. For well over 40 years, partnerships have been the foundation of ACEA's success, and I've seen that in practice in countries such as Vanuatu. Fostering and implementing research collaborations and partnerships with organisations all over the world has led to stronger and more equitable agriculture, food, forestry and fishery systems, improved food and nutrition security and more sustainable management of natural resources. Australia is increasingly focused on supporting our partners to mitigate and adapt to climate change and implement more resilient agricultural practices, improving food security and livelihoods. We are working with governments, researchers, communities, smallholder farmers and other stakeholders in our partner countries to deliver their priorities in agriculture. And we do this by providing financial and technical assistance to our region to help build long-term food system resilience. And so I'm very pleased to announce today that Australia is investing a further $2.6 million into the Centre for Pacific Crops and Trees, CPACT. This investment supports the Pacific Community's regional gene bank, ensuring the long-term conservation and distribution of key crops and trees of the Pacific. With a changing climate, the ability to conserve a diverse range of food plants will mean Pacific countries can access food crops that are better adapted to new conditions. This investment directly supports local scientific expertise and the regional architecture. This is one of many investments we are making. Our emphasis on climate partnerships is also on display through the Pacific Climate Infrastructure Financing Partnership, delivering off-grid renewable energy infrastructure to boost food security and rural livelihoods in remote Pacific islands. When the scale of the challenge is immense, we need more solutions developed through partnerships, collaboration and cooperation. So I hope you have many discussions today that lead to strong partnerships. It looks like a great program. And I was particularly struck by the topic of the final session, achieving transformational outcomes. Transformational is what it will take if we are to reach the Sustainable Development Goal of zero hunger. No one in today's modern world should suffer from hunger, but food security goes beyond hunger alone. It's connected to many of the challenges our world is facing, and it matters for Australia and our region. Improving food security is critical for stability, for stronger economic ties and opportunities for trade, for better health outcomes, and for promoting innovative and sustainable solutions to build a safer and more resilient region for all. Because of this, I'm also very pleased to present the Crawford Fund Medal. The Crawford Fund Medal recognises Australians who've made a considerable and continued contribution to international agricultural research. And this year's highly deserving recipient is Dr. Tony Fischer. This award recognises his significant contribution to global wheat production and agricultural development. Coming from a wheat sheep farm at Borlaug Creek in southern New South Wales, Tony worked with Nobel Prize Laureate, the great Dr. Borlaug, leading the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Centre's Global Wheat Program. He's also made a substantial contribution to Australia's impact in international agricultural research through various roles with ACEA, CSIRO, the Crawford Fund and ANU, mentoring and guiding many young scientists along the way. Tony will be adding the Crawford Fund Medal to many esteemed awards, including the C.M. Donald Medal, the William Farrer Memorial Medal, and he's member of the Order of Australia. I'd now like to call up Dr. Fischer to receive this award. Congratulations again.
Good morning, everyone, Mr. Minister and colleagues. I'm deeply honoured to receive the Crawford Medal from the Crawford Fund and for a chance to say a few words at this important conference. Firstly, a few remarks about my career, then a few more general comments supporting very much what the Minister has just had to say. An acknowledgement from the past. Upon finishing agricultural science at the University of Melbourne, my animal science lecturer and later founder of the Crawford Fund, Derek Tribe, posed the question that had never before considered seriously. Tony, he asked, how are we going to feed the world? A seed was sown in Derek's office that afternoon in December 1960. A decade later, as you heard, the boy from the wheat farm in Borlaug Creek arrived to work at CIMMYT in Mexico just 2 weeks before his boss and wheat breeder, Norman Borlaug, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his pivotal role in the Green Revolution in South Asia, undoubtedly averting more famine in that populous region of small farmers. For me, therefore, the course was set for a lengthy career in wheat agronomy, wheat physiology, wheat breeding, wheat farming systems, grappling with the challenge of delivering impact through the sciences of agriculture and, I would add, as I learnt along the track, socioeconomics. But firstly, another memorable message from December 1960. At a farewell dinner for the rowdy new agricultural graduates, our biochemistry professor, Michael Burt, dared to deliver a valedictory speech entitled simply, "Measure It." Excellent advice that I have never forgotten, but probably not well received by the audience at that dinner. However, I've learned over the years that measurement must be augmented by data analysis, unrelenting curiosity and reporting and publication, followed by promotion of your conclusions when the evidence is sound. And my final lesson was not to lose sight of the big picture goals in agriculture, which include positive impacts on food security, the welfare of farmers and sustainability of the natural resource base of agriculture. This inevitably involves us agricultural scientists collaborating with other scientists and with other people, connecting our research to the real world. I stumbled in some of these lessons I've just mentioned. I stumbled myself, but was lucky much of the time. One good fortune was my early farming experience, which stood me in very good stead with Norman Borlaug from the beginning. My plots were probably better than his plots. Another was encountering, collaborating and inspiring people along the way. I could mention many, but one example suffices. I refer to my 630-page book, Crop Yield and Global Food Security, Will Yield Increase Continue to Feed the World? There's a rare copy down there on the ACR stand. It was co-authored by CIMMYT colleagues, great collaborators, namely Derek Biley, an agricultural economist from, of all places, Euralia in South Australia. If you don't know, that's near Orroroo, but it's north of the Goyder line. Ask somebody about that. And the other co-author was Greg Edmeades, a maize scientist from CIMMYT, but growing up on a dairy farm in Cambridge, New Zealand. ACR and GRDC generously published the book 10 years ago. That's more good fortune. It's free to download from the ACR website and has been cited extensively. Okay, in finishing, I want to express my gratitude to the Crawford Fund, not only for the award, but also for being true over its 40 years or so to the wonderful maxim, doing well by doing good, promoted very early on by Professor Derek Tribe and leading to his 1991 book of the same title. Enlightened self-interest was a blunter summary that Derek often used to describe it. As you've heard, Australia does good in its overseas agricultural aid program, principally delivered by ACR, which supports in neighbouring developing countries partnership agricultural research. This helps lift their agricultural productivity and their research capacity. As a result, Australia does well. For example, new insights into common agricultural problems, early warning on exotic biotic stresses, pests, weeds, insects that threaten our agriculture, and access to novel crop germplasm. But the benefits go beyond agriculture to strengthening our security building trust and invaluable soft power with our neighbours, and especially contributing to their economic growth, the ultimate way of dealing with insecurity. I also wish to acknowledge the strong effort that Crawford Fund has made in the last 20 years or so to engage the refreshing idealism of early career scientists in the task of Australia's international agricultural research. This wasn't on the agenda when Crawford was set up, but it's very much part of the agenda these days, and I especially highlight the foresight and energy of Cathy Reid in achieving this. Very much her story. Many of you are here today on Crawford Fund scholarships representing the others, the hundreds of others linked to Crawford Fund and upon whom our regional future as good neighbours through agricultural research and development aid depends. And finally, I wish to express my enduring gratitude to my wife Miriam, who is here this morning, Ingeniero Agronomo. I'll repeat that, Ingeniero Agronomo from Chile, dedicated plant pathologist and pioneer plant molecular biologist, as well as strong and loving mother and indispensable partner in my career. Thank you, Miriam, and thank you, everybody.